Righty ho. Let's see what's going on here now. Let's go on there. Aha. Start. What does that mean? No idea. Okay. Let me first of all share this to the Freedom Network Live. Let's look at my page. Hello everyone, I'm just trying to work all this stuff out. I think we're getting there. Kate Lumley's commenting on my post already. Good God, I haven't even asked her to speak yet and she started. Welcome everybody to the IAM Connection Live. I'm just setting up the link. I'll invite my lovely guest Kate on in a moment. She's already in the waiting room, like a waiting room for a psychiatric department appointment. But I'll bring it on in a sec. Just bear with me. There we are. So that's there. And if I share this to, here we are. Share now to public. And finally, I share it to somewhere else. Let's try Sology. Post. Looking good. So I know a fab cake artist. Ray Reddick Lee. I've been watching you doing yoga. Right. Let's see now if we can't get Kate on. Okay, Kate. There we go. Oh, my word. Aha. Let me see. Can you hear me?
I.
Oh, that sounds a bit funny. Hang on a
I
sec.
see you.
Oh, my word. Aha.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you very clearly. Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, I don't like that reverb that we're getting, though. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Always great. And it's so fun to be with you always. It's so funny having other people join us today because we do this so often, have our coffee talk.
Oh, that's a nice
conversation. Joyful to be with you in your new emergence of this. Look at you.
Look.
I love it.
It's marvelous, isn't it? Yeah, this will
so
just
cool.
be.
I love expanding love.
This will just be one of our normal conversations, and might ask some deep and searching questions about what's it all about, Kate.
What did you say there? I was playing with the volume.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying we might ask some deep and searching questions. The connection doesn't seem to be very good. I don't know why. It seems to be okay this end.
So I have a very strong internet where I am, but I would agree with you that it is not very clear at all. Let me see if it's my headset. Maybe, let me just take the headset off and see if that affects it at all. Just give me a.
Okay.
How about that? Does that sound any better?
I think it
does.
Does
sound
actually,
any
yeah.
better without?
Yeah, I don't think it's the headset. I think it's your head.
Well, I better get into my heart then and fix this right away. Because you know how that works.
No, this is a
We
very.
do it all the time, right? I mean, this is what this heart for.
Yeah, this. I don't know what's happening with the connection, but I think we'll just plod on, shall we, and just see how we get on. But can I say you look great this morning, and the background looks colourful as normal.
Yes, this morning I am in the kitchen but some of my play of heart, I always invite that to be here because that's really how I sit here with you right now, is through this divine being that I am as an artist. I mean, it's part of what's been my innate in my code all along. So I love to have the pieces of my heart, as I call them, and that's spelled P-E-A-C-E. How about that? P-E-A-C-E-S. Pieces of my, that which brings me peace. And the word art is inside of the heart. And the platform that I'm now really expanding, I believe that it is going to be the arts that save the planet.
Yeah.
And planet, I spell P-L-A-N-I-T. I feel like arts that are embedded in the code word of heart have been a part of the plan always for us, and that divine art form, and however it plays out into our beautiful world. If it doesn't mean you have to be a professional chef, if culinary is your gift, it means that you can create a beautiful family, a beautiful meal full of love.
Yes, we'll have none of that creating. Right? We'll have none of that creating beautiful families on this live show. Thank you.
A different program altogether. Yeah, not this program.
After the watershed.
Not what we mean by co-creation.
Well, it's all about co-creation, but sometimes sometimes we need to move up past the sacral chakra, so I've been told, whatever that means.
Oh, very much so. You know, the co-creation part is finding your playmates, right? To co-create with, and finding the synchronicities, shared intentions, right? So if you look at that mug that you were just holding there, that was a shared intention because you am in the conscious business enterprise. And when I heard your voice say that, I'd never met you. You know, you live across the other side of the world, and I'm in Texas and you're in England, but it was destined that we were to meet. And when we hear something that triggers us, I think that's so important to respect, honor, follow up on, right? Because the day that I heard that, I drew that funny little image that is now on that mug. And I'm never without a notebook. You know, I mean, this is part of the journey that I'm on. I'm always recording. I have it here. If my eyes are glancing down, it's because you're inspiring me, coming through you in my conversations. So we're always in the process of co-creating. And I think that what I now recognize is the dream I'm in, living while I'm awake, helps me become the more of who I am. I'm already all that I am. I'm all different. We all are, right? So it's when you have something that gives you focus, like I'm looking at utopia. So all of a sudden my world becomes magical, and I'm starting to speak with the plants, trees, and they all become animated to me, right? Yeah. So that's just my reference point. Everybody else has got their own dream. Once they've identified it, it helps them navigate this physical experience, tapping things into it. So bigger dream, more parts that can come in and the more players to co-create it with you. And this is just a journey that just keeps showing me the more and the more and the more that I'm in the process of. It's so fun. It has no end.
I think we met, didn't we, Kate, about 3 or maybe 4 years ago on a humanities team conscious business change agent course.
Yes.
And I didn't know what that was. I was just sitting at my computer one day reading an email, and I got this sort of advert up for why not join humanities team conscious business. Now, I was never interested in business. I've never been interested in business. And yet I got this real strong push from within to join it, you know, and it cost quite a few bob. You know, that means it was quite expensive. And I didn't even have a tussle with it. I thought, yeah, this is for me. And I pressed on it, and I met all sorts of weird and wonderful people on it, including including yourself, you know. And I'd never really spoken to a Texan before. The only Texan I knew was Buddy Epsom, you know, Jed Clampett and Jethro Debo Dean. and J.R. Ewing, you know. So I had a sort of strange notion of what
The
Texans were
fictional
about.
characters.
And I thought that they were all millionaires, you know, and they all were very serious, you know, just about making money. But you changed my mind on all that sort of thing. Thank God, you know. And I've realized that Texas, you know, it seems to have an energy all of its
Oh,
own. And there seems to be lots and lots of lunatic people in Texas. Can you explain the reason for that, please?
when you say lunatic, I think that's interesting. I definitely have traveled a lot, and I share with you the same sentiment that Texans are unique. One of the things that I recognize about where I live is independence, sovereignty, sustainability. Texans are very capable beings. They learn to live on the land, work on the land, harvest the land, protect the land. They're just very years, they get it done. You know, they're not sitting around waiting in a catastrophe for something to come in and save them. They're taking inspired action and putting things back together, community, and quickly. It's just, it's definitely a, it's a consciousness of being independent and capable, but working together, independent in community, which is interesting since I am living in this environment and that's been a part of my culture, that I do something co-creating with other beings, this utopic world that is both imaginary and moves into the physical world, with each being that is inside of the cartoon world has a platform all unto itself. That's an individual that then comes in and be part of the community, behaving ourselves. So Texas is a very dynamic place. I love it. I love our climate. So I think our climate influences how people think and feel. We feel good and we're outside connecting to nature a good percentage of our year because climate is so good. And I think when you are connected to nature, that is a very healthy way of being in the world.
Oh, I agree, Kate. I mean, I was ill for many, many years, as you know, and part of my recovery has been about nature. It's all about returning to my original nature, which when I started on this recovery journey, I didn't really understand what that was about. But to be out in nature now, to be out in fresh air, to be out surrounded by all sorts of forms of nature, it just has definitely helped me to get better quickly. You know, I'm doing less thinking now, and more walking, and more running, and more swimming, and all those sorts of things. You know, I'm just about to come up to 65 years of age, but on the inside, I feel like a 17-year-old. You know, and I also have the thoughts of a 17-year-old, which could get me into a lot of trouble. You know, if people could hear them or read them. But the point about it is, you know, I feel absolutely marvelous, and you know that you and I connected as well at the level of the IAM, because I'm developing a course, as you know, and some books and some programs called the IAM approach to health and well-being. And before I started this, I had no idea what this IAM presence was and what living in the now was and all this sort of stuff. Now I understand it now, and I also understand that there are many, many, many connections going on that we couldn't possibly manipulate by ourselves. There's so much stuff happening in the invisible worlds for our benefit. But the most important thing is to let go and allow the process to happen. So that's what I do now. I've surrendered to this invisible, bigger process than me. And as a consequence, I've met you. There are many, many other connections coming across the planet. You know, Todd Medina, Shanine Mooland, all these people now who are developing from their presence connections across the world, you know, and I feel really inspired and uplifted by this. What do you think about that then?
I completely concur with you. And I love this process, how it organically is unfolding. I recall very clearly when you and I both connected on that I am presence, because I was just stepping into my awareness of that as well. And I think it's so important too, to be tuned into the signs. Do you remember that we delighted that we were both using the green heart?
Yeah.
realizing it in the insignia. I had it all over my love yous, and you had it in your I am wellness. And that simple is the physical world helping us see one another as, yes, there's more here to explore. Because typically hearts were really mostly red and pink, right? So see that green, it was like, And these connections, I love the organic, but I love all that. I'm recognizing that there is incredible power in having intention, right? So it helps bring something we are thinking or being with. I'll give you an example. As I sit here and we think about these relations that are tying up and connecting, and you can't make things up. One of the things that makes me realize the multiverse and this universal consciousness that I now call it, where we each have aspects or tentacles into it, and we are I am presence of our piece of the puzzle as we behive ourselves in community to bring about some of these master plans that have been coded in us to help about greater self-love and self-actualization. So that's what the platform that I, as a visionary artist, am now really bringing in this framework able to have this cartoon world. I very humbly state, just for a point of reference, is something like Whoville or the Disney, universe that has evolved for decades. When something is beginning and becoming an iconic platform, it has its beginning. It has an infancy that only people can see, position, and their point of view. If I had not taken inspired action to start creating the images that are behind me, this way into utopia, it doesn't mean that it wouldn't have come about in another way, because I'm not that vain. There's other platforms that are going to be very big in this way, but they're going to be different, because the way that this came through is through my unique filter. And so the funny friends and the love used, it all started organically, but it was a trigger back in February of 2010 in a business meeting when someone said to me, "You are not a sheep." That was something I was curious about, because my brain heard it as you, EWE, are not a sheep. I am a female, and you is a female sheep. Isn't it funny he called me I'm not what I am? Huh. Well, on any given day in the world that you're being your genius, I don't think we know the rest of your life can start to unfold, and the rest of that big vision was going to begin in that moment, and my whole life was going to change. When I had the any other business meeting, right? And yet the whole entire trajectory of my life was getting ready to shift. I didn't know it, and it's not been so subtle. That was in 2010, here 10 years later. It's been an evolution that each piece of the puzzle has started to help me see the more of what it is. What started happening for me in 2018, after I'd been journaling. Do you have something you wanted to share there, or do you want me to keep sharing?
No, just keep going. It's the connection's
taking this
dreadful.
back to what we. Oh, that makes me sad.
No, not to worry. I think sometimes what happens individually, invisibly. Invisibly, I said we've got open hearts. We're doing the best that we can, and I'm sure it all will be fine. But no, you carry on. You're going well.
Absolutely. Okay, so what I'd also like to do is use, this is how I operate. I'd like to use my the intention that we help clear the line and support a better listening experience for all of us. So I'm going to set that intention right now that we're going to work with to serve us. I do things like this all the time. It's something that I've become aware of because we are powerful creators. So what I was sharing is getting into the discovery of all of what this is. I journal, and I have, at this stage, 10 years later, thousands of these journals that are recorded data points. Very challenging for me to keep up with all of the content that was coming to me, and I didn't even know why it was all coming to me. But it's like pieces of the puzzle that I could then start to see. Universe, when it's playing with you, it is working with you where you are and what you can see. But the more you can see, then the more you can experience, and the more you can be, do, connect, right? So I will tell you that I did not know how utopia being, all the different parts that I could see. I could see that there's this recreational, retreat resort place that was way in the future, that utopia, where families would go to be connected with one another in nature, and all these characters and stories that would play out in cartoons and film and books were going to come to life, much like what I just described, those iconic platforms that already exist as a reference point: Dr. Seuss, Walter Disney, right? So how am I going to do all that? I'm a corporate woman that's a mother to triplets, young children, in a loving relationship, lots of friendships, right? Like, how am I gonna be? Well, the beautiful part is I never was intended to do it all alone, because this is really humanity's story of stepping out of separation into love and unity. And the love, use, and utopia are placed on the hearts of many artists, scientists, educators on the planet, other artists. And because I'm the visionary artist that's holding the container, I'm now seeing and being introduced to the different parts of the puzzle. And the word P is got the capital ART inside of the parts, right? Different parts that are inside utopia. And I mentioned recently on Todd Medina's show my relationship with a singer, and how when I met with him, he sat down with me 2 years ago. I was writing music for Utopia, but didn't know what that was. Shocking. That's Paul Luftenegger, who is the bee behind me. Super Paul Luftenegger, right? This painting came into being on January 1st of 2019. Was that right? 2018. On New Year's Day. Had to be painted through me. These ended up being very significant. I was shown by God's spirit internally that I needed to paint this that day and post it on Facebook, bring about this consciousness being put on the intranet to be peace, right? Be peace. So it's the be, all that funny stuff. This piece ended up being included at the United Nations International Day of Peace. I didn't have to do any of that. Did it through introduction and invitation of Paul Luftenegger, who was invited to sing at the United Nations, since he embodies the character of super pollinator, the utopia, wanted the art that energetically has coding in it to be a part of the day and the event at the United Nations also. Because when we're creating, we are putting our energy and our intentions and our into the work, right? It's wild.
I think the link with Paul as well was amazing, because, until I knew, I never knew Paul, I never knew you, but I taught a technique where I get people to put their hands on their hearts and say, I love you, and that's before I heard Paul's song called My Heart. And when I heard that, I was just like I was completely overwhelmed. I thought, how can that be? Because he's singing about it. I'm asking people to do that. And in truth, Kate, the simplicity of my life now is I try to metaphorically decapitate myself, take my head off, throw it away, put my hands on my heart and try and listen to what my heart's talking to me about, or telling me, or guiding me, and my life's become awfully simple like that now, because what I've realized is there's a much, much greater intelligence that comes from our heart than comes from our tiny heads. It's just that our tiny heads have been told that they're very important, and I think in a way we've been duped for a long, long time, So my suggestion to people, based upon my own personal lived experiences, just do some mindful breathing with a loving feeling, and just wait until the next answer emerges, and then go with that. And I know that you do that when you're working. You work from the heart. I work from the heart. And when I'm completely engrossed with an open and flowing heart, I couldn't be any happier than that. That's where my joy is flowing from. And in that condition and in that position, there's no anxiety, there's no nervousness, there's no tension, there's no worry, there's just joy. And I know that you and I are linked on that level.
Very much so. I love what I just heard you say. And Joe, one of the things that I think my journey, my personal experience is that communication with self and being able to interpret what that next step is, right? So tapped in and tuned in you are to your higher self, the more ways of communicating with the spiritual realm that we are not separate from, that is God, that heart. So I reference some funny things now that became awarenesses of mine. From the age of, from being a very young child, I knew that numbers had some significance to me. And I could, it almost felt like numbers were speaking a language to me, but I didn't understand that really in the physical world until 2010, when it came back to me. And I started to realize that, oh yes, numbers are a language.
Yeah.
So are dragonflies, right? So is nature. So is the spiritual meaning of everything that steps into your space, or the twisting of an ankle, right? Everything is happening for a reason. And the more ways that you have the ability to tap in, tune in, and turn on to what those communication messages are, the more intentional guidance you have to follow to reach the next step. So I'll give you an example. I was sitting in a very sacred space that was so beautiful, and I was very clear mind and heart, and I was saying prayers because I had this awareness that the land was wanting to talk to me. Remember, I mentioned the land. I was like, I don't know how that's going to come about. But I had a very strange experience 3.5 years ago, in that I climbed Enchanted Rock out in west of me. And I climbed to the top and I looked down from Enchanted Rock, which is a 500-mile underneath the ground energy space. On its level, it's certainly not that amount. I don't remember its coverage, but my point is, I became so emotional when I looked down and I could see it complete. I can't explain that. That was some kind of weird timeline or vision. Maybe it's in my, I'm totally okay with whatever it is that it is, because the universe is not obligated to justify itself or explain itself to me. I just know what I experienced. I saw it complete, right? And so as I saw it complete, I became extremely emotional. I was like, how in the world is all that going to happen? I'm looking at land that is millions of dollars, you know, and I had to revalue myself. I had to rethink about how I think about big money, right? I needed to stop thinking about money, because it's not about money only. Currency is about coming in dynamic ways, and no one of us are supposed to do the parts by ourselves. Flash forward 2 years later from the time that I had stood on that rock and seen that, and I hadn't really thought much about it, just trusted that's where the land is. The land is in the plan. I am praying because I'm getting this awareness that I'm to be connecting with the land. Okay, so I finish the prayer. I go back and I make my 6:30 in the morning. I make myself a cup of coffee and I'm sitting and I'm having the coffee and my phone. I'm like, that's weird. I'm writing in my journal, inspiration. So I pick it up and it says, Rainbow Breath, Divine Manifestation. I'm like, what's that about? I pull it up and I look at it and it says, we're doing this event in Fredericksburg, Texas, near Enchanted Rock, and we're creating this utopian culture. Oh my God. I mean, like, she's a bad speller. She spells it wrong. No, she's not wrong. I'm just saying I spell utopia, E-W-E-T-O-P-I-A. I've shown. And it was spelled in the traditional sense, U-T-P-I-A. T-O-P-I-A. So I'm going to call her when I get back home, because we're going to be neighbors. And this is important. We're going to be in community. Well, I call her when I get back home later. And even the moment that I called her, it was divine. She had just stepped into the office. It was a Sunday. I'd gotten the nudge to call her right then. And I did. And she was in that office exact moment for the whole day to take that call. And when I called her and I started introducing myself, she stopped and she said, this call warrants my full attention. I'm going to call you back in 20 minutes. I need to sit down and talk. What turned out to be that this woman shared with me, she wanted me to come up to her she invited me to come and stay with my family. We reclimbed Enchanted Rock that weekend. But what she shared with me while we were there is she said, Kate, when I heard speaking, my breath was taken away. I bought this property 20 years ago and was told that I was built to build utopia on it. But I do not even know what things. I've been taking the action steps to build on the 40 acres bed and breakfast retreat, right? To connect with nature, to have people connect with one another in nature, using the same language that I had in my heart. You can't explain that. So right here, I'm sitting with her property on my mug here, Disco, the groover, sitting on one of the little statues there. And I put the phrase there that says, more times than not, dreams come true on wing its. You know, you're winging it, you're following your heart. When I went and visited her property and she told me that she owns the property. Okay. She's already got the codex in her heart that she's to build utopia. When I climbed Enchanted Rock, I cried because her property is in the space of where I saw utopia 2 years before I met this woman, a year and a half ago now, right? Yeah. So all of it just starts to come together to show you what's really happening on this planet. And as we tap into our hearts and we follow our guidance, we realize that the piece that we're holding has intrinsic value else's parts. Humanity is coming together, banding together as an army of I ams, being our I am presence is our ammo, right? So people want to have weapons of mass destruction. We have tools of massive creation. That's our am. Oh my gosh, bam! When I be myself, wow, what we can create. And now my role is being who I am, being seen and heard, stepping into my power and inviting others to match me and bring your piece. Get in and be it. You may not be great, even though you're meant to be a master of it, right? You've got to begin now. Begin. And then where peace and your part, the art that brings you peace, is what fits inside of this or SUN thing else. None of us are here not on purpose. And no one can do what each of you can do. And on my part, you're your part. So awesome.
I think it's marvelous that, well, it's just miraculous, really, every single day. My view is that if it don't go out chasing anything and just wait till it comes, that seems very, very egotistical, but almost just wait until things appear rather than going chasing, because all my life I've chased after things and I've just basically exhausted myself, you know, on the rat race or rat wheel of trying to climb to success and make money and all that, you know. And since I've sort of become more laid back and trusted this heart intelligence, it's almost like some sort of a bigger gates opened and things starting to come at me rather than me chasing after them, you know. So that's where I'm up to. Kate, I only know a little bit, and all I can ever do is just share where I'm up to and my hope for the future, you know, because many, many years ago, I was in a dreadful place, you know. I'm not in that place now, so that story's gone now. I'm not the person that I was then, but I've also realized that I'm quite good at lots of stuff, you know, and I was hiding this stuff now, and it all seems to be coming out now as I express myself. You know, I think I'm a good singer, actually, much better than Paul Luftenegger, but I'll tell him that when I get there. But I see us on a stage somewhere, you know, dishing
Awesome.
dishing this message out on a big stage, you know, hopefully in Texas, you know, because I'd like to travel a bit, you know. But the message is, it's simple, isn't it? It's just tap on your heart, put your hands on your heart and say, is there anybody in there, you know? And you may get the shock of your life when the answer comes, you know. Because my big thing now, Kate, is to try and help children as young as they are before they get clobbered and adulterated by this mad, crazy world that we live in. I think that's been the problem. You know, I'm on my soapbox a bit here now, but as I start to wake up and see things more clearly, I can see that we don't need that. We don't want that. If we can facilitate an environment where the new children come through and are not forced or misdirected into anything that they don't want to do, I'm sure that they will guide us into the utopia that we're helping to facilitate. And just on that note, I know Ashley Lee as well. We love Ashley, and she's working with conscious kids. So there's all these people that I've met who are sharing the same sort of, sharing the same heartfelt, drives and motivations. So I think it's absolutely marvelous. Anyway, I'll shut up now because I'm supposed to be asking the questions. Let me ask you this questions. You've got 3 wonderful children, all of the same age. Yeah. Luke, Maddie, and Kenzie.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to have a family.
Yeah. Luke, Maddie, and Kenzie. I've had the pleasure to meet Maddie because I think she thought we were Maddie when we met up in London in the British Museum. She looked absolutely bored. She looked bored out of her brains, and I caught her looking at us as if to say, look at these 2 nutters. What are they doing? But the point is, I've met Maddie, she's got her own journey to be on. And what about Luke and Kenzie? Do your children sort of resonate with your heartstrings?
Great question. And yes and no. So as this is all unfolding, they're seeing more and more of what this all is. You live with me. They live with the abundance of what this is. Our home is overflowing with the agents that are coming through me. So, some of what they are experiencing with Utopia, they don't much enjoy, in that the art studio is overflown and is flowing the dining room. And, so it's like, wow, that's the funny part of it, right? Like the physical with this creator who is having so much creation come through them. It is, however, very inspiring in the standpoint that it gives them permission to create that they are. And so I think more than them being connected to Utopia in a sense of really understanding the way I am feeling it and knowing it, I think it becomes more of a permission slip to be their genius, right? Of just, and you did meet Maddie because she was there celebrating her love for the performing arts with her theater company. In experience form, right? Mackenzie is a very artistic, creative, culinary. She draws. The things that she creates are just astounding. And what is starting to emerge for her is by her watching and seeing what mommy is doing, her world is expanding at the ready. I mean, it's just sitting here because I wrote Dan a postcard, and this is one of her pieces of art that is now a postcard. But we model for our children just how to be. Utopia is at the stage that it is right now. I use Utopia in this moment to write people of me honoring them to be their I am, right? Writing a postcard to somebody that has just served me in a beautiful way is true. It doesn't have to be a recreational resort. It doesn't have to be a movie. It doesn't have to be a cartoon to be real. They're living the utopic world with their mom, who sits and writes these postcards to people that just cross their path and just say, thank you for enriching our day. Maybe at the dry cleaner, at the grocery store, the person that we sat for 5 minutes with. We're planting seeds of love all over the planet, wherever we go. They're practicing too. I love that they now say, Mom, can we give them a tip because they are being their genius? So, like, wow, yes, it's affecting them. I think they think that I'm pretty funny, sometimes. I think I got to have a great career as a stand-up comic talking about his life with us. Because he's quite funny. invented. You know, one of the things that I recognize about me, and so it's important to state this. Yes, I'm wild and wacky and whimsical and live with this imagination. It's so dynamic, and I'm grateful for it. There's another whole side of me that is very structured, very corporate. I've been in international business development for a couple decades with a Fortune 200 company successfully. So you can't do that if you're not able to create critical path.
Yeah.
So this thing is challenging now as I'm moving in and out of these spaces. But having a propensity for business and this wacky musical world is definitely an important combination of the IAM of all that, because our IAM is limitless. It's what parts do we want to tap into and develop and cultivate, right?
I agree, Kate. I mean, we've talked about this a lot, and I see that the heart and the power of an opening and flowing heart, it brings about something called hemispheric resynchronization. And we've talked about this, you know, because I'm a scientist first and foremost, and I have a doubting Thomas in me that's a real honest skeptic, and I need to feel deeply into whether something sits really deeply with me. That's how I measure my life now. Is I take it into my heart and allow it to go through the open heart into my heart of hearts, and if it resonates in there, that's my guidance in the truth. That's the only way I can do it now. I was like that as a child, but I allowed people to talk me out of my feelings and to inject their thinking into me, you see. And I can see now that's why I talk about taking our heads off and kicking them away and just getting back into our bodies and deep into our heart of hearts and working from there, you know. And so to go back to, I think it's so important that we not only do we need our right artistic open wavelength brain, but we also need the left linear brain. And I see it, the wave comes in from the right, it travels across and it becomes particles in the left brain, you know. And I think, you know, the infinity symbol that we use all the time, I think that's just a reflection of the movement that takes us forward in a spiraling, ascending way, you know. And the unicorn's horn to me is a representation of us all going forward now. And I really feel, I'll just keep going until this is stopped. I really feel that this great big wave that's sweeping the planet now, it's far too big to understand. We just need to let go and allow it to take us through to the next dimension, if there are such things as dimension. You know, this is can I ask?
You locked up. Can you ask? The screen has frozen. Has frozen. I can't hear or see you moving live. So I don't know if anybody else can see me or if we're live. I think we are. It shows that we're live on Facebook. So that was interesting that Joe is just off. He was getting ready to ask me a question. And I'm not quite certain what he was asking. I will hold space for him while he works to come back in. I am
Sorry, Kate,
really,
I completely
there you
lost.
are.
I completely lost you there. I beg your pardon. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I lost you. You were getting ready to ask the question.
Right.
Well, we have big energy. We're creating a lot of energy.
Yeah, it is. Fully enough, I went on a thing the other night. I went into an online sort of language of light sharing thing, and one of our windows blew out, believe it or not, you know. So take that as you see it. I don't know. But the question I was going to ask you is, and I did ask, well, I get mixed up a lot. You know, people ask me, you know, you're supposed to understand this. You've got a PhD in this, that, and the other. And the truth of it is, I'm winging it most of the time, Kate, to be honest with you, you know. But people ask me, what is quantum intelligence? What is this thing that people are going on about? Quantum consciousness. So can I have your sort of feeling on what that actually means, please?
I've never been asked that way. So I'm hearing that for the first time. So the first time I'm curious about, I do exactly this. I go, what would that mean? So quantum intelligence, tapping into a field that is seemingly outside of me, but I'm interconnected in it because I'm a part of all that is. When I start thinking about my intelligence, it goes back into what I was just describing, the extrasensory perceptions, my ability to be in alignment with my higher self. So hear things audio clairvoyantly from time to time, like a voice just truly speaking to me, that's giving me insights. There's an intelligent side come for me that feels, I don't know how to describe it anything other than like a telepathic way, where there's wisdom and information that just seems to be sitting there with, I ask a question and then it's there and I kind of go, what was that? Right. But I do have this ability to tap into, I'm calling it this universal consciousness source. And as I've read and been on my own discovery, Joe, other creators and other inventors, anybody that's bringing something forward through the imagination into the physical world, experientially, because I've experienced it, to now hear them in a way that is familiar to me, that they too were drawing this idea from either a vision or something that was shown them, however it was able to communicate with them in the innate. Got some very unusual experiences. I'm really comfortable, expressing in a public forum. Maybe not, because people don't know me yet. So some of the things that I experienced, you may just discount and say, that's completely unbelievable. Well, I don't need you to believe it.
Yeah.
I experienced it. It was for me on purpose. And I think each of us has to get comfortable with knowing that that information that's coming to us for doesn't have to be for anybody else. You don't have to share some of the unusual new insights that you're getting until you're comfortable doing that. And one of the things that is so challenging when you're tapping into that quantum intelligence field is it feels like you're trying to interpret it yourself. And then if you're talking to somebody else that doesn't believe you and thinks you're crazy, you run shutting it down versus it expanding. So I found that in my things were very exciting to me as I was hearing things really unusually, like my children were even speaking to me as young children. And I started to tell people around me that were of my friends and my family, and I would share some of the thoughts and they kind of go, that's weird. Yeah, it is weird. But weirder is that what I'm hearing and talking about exists. There's information and data. I can literally go pull up other people. It's like a treasure hunt, right? The quantum wisdom is the nugget that maybe you get that you can pull in to go do more research in the physical world. There's incredible studying the ways that we are in this universe, in our physical body, and all the different aspects. Someone, and so you just have to know what you're looking for. And then you go explore it and you play with it. And I play. I play and I say, I'm really curious about this. Please bring me more perspective. And it does. Anything that I want to learn more about, evidence of something, it will begin to happen. I will have more and more opportunities to see that everything. Those stories I described already. I mean, meeting a singer that lives in Bermuda, that 2 years before he met me, he was writing music artist for, and we were calling it the same thing. That's crazy. You know, a woman that's opening a music school finds my work inside a health shop, loves it, connects with it, calls me on the phone, says, I'd like to speak with you about having your artwork in my art school. And we work that space, and that's Dominique McCormick with Century Fine Arts Music School. That's not too terribly far from where I live. And it turns out we recognize that she is Mother Earth. And Dominique is a world-class soprano artist that was in the Parisian Opera House for 14 years, Houston Opera. She's a professor at the University of Houston in Masters of Music. If I were to set an intention and find a world-class soprano, that might be very intimidating versus the universe just organizing and aligning us and her now to see herself inside of that space and bring that energy. Beautiful songwriter that's writing songs for the children that will inspire their how great thou art.
Yeah. See, I regarding quantum intelligence, I didn't have a clue until it started to come to me, really. And I've always had this sort of deeply Catholic feeling about angels and archangels, and I'm happy with that, you know. And I found something called the mystical Kabbalah or Kabbalah. And when I got it, I got tingles. In fact, just talking about it now, I'm getting real tingles up my spine, you know. And that talks about different spheres of consciousness, you know. And quite recently, where there was we're going through quite a massive storm here at the moment, Kate. So if you hear a lot of thunder, like now, for example, and lightning, in fact, it's really, really bizarre, but we'll just keep going. It's almost as if I'm not supposed to be saying this, you know. So I mentioned the mystical Kabbalah and the
awesome energy.
and the thunder and lightning comes in. But, you know, there used to be 10 spheres of consciousness. Initially, there was 12. And then for some reason, 2 got blocked off. But they've recently been put back online. So it's back to 12. And this number 12 has plagued me all of my life. And where I'm up to now is I'm looking at the connection between the heart and the 12 cranial nerves and the 12 meridians and the 12 disciplines and disciples and the 12 stations of the cross and the 12 signs of the zodiac. It's all 12, 12, 12, 12 with me. But there's a masculine and a feminine component to both of these, you know. And so I'm seeing this, that in some way, the masculine or the male has kicked out the feminine, and is almost like a resurgence now of the sacred feminine coming back to reset the balance. And I've had all this stuff coming to me all of my life. I've had a very, very, very strong connection with Mother Mary in her various forms, and also Isis and Osiris. And these are things that are, you know, they've been coming to me all my life. And I've met a group of people who have been having the same sorts of things. Now, Kate, because there's only you and me, I can tell you this because nobody else is listening, you know. But I also feel that at some level, you know, there's also a lot of extraterrestrial information coming in as well, you know, like the Lyrans and the Pleiadians and the Arcturians and the, you know, the Galactic Federation of Light and Language of Light and Love. I didn't have a clue what people were going on about until it started to happen to me, you see. And the old Joe would have been back in the psychiatric department, except something was saying to me, Joe, this is just the art and the science of something called semiotics. I didn't have a clue what semiotics was. And to me, it's all become about sacred symbols, sacred geometry, and sacred communication. And as you know, the way we link as well is I'm developing a field called Chromato-opto-genetics. And it's the use of sound and light at various frequencies to reset the balance in individual human consciousness to reset it back to its original soul's vibration. So other than the other stuff that we're doing, you know, I'm messing around with that as well, because this is basically new stuff that's miles ahead of the game in the neuroscience field, you know. And I feel that not only will I be taking the language of light and love to the world, but I'll also be bringing this into the neuroscience of the future as well. I don't know why I've spilled the beans on that there, but that's where I'm up to. And so to me, I'll just finish off. It's about expanding our sensory awareness to multi-sensory awareness. And if you like, extrasensory perception, which will take us back to our initial sensitivity. And what's the most important thing is to help people to develop tolerance to their own emotional sensitivity. And we can only do that, Kate, by cultivating an inner smile, your inner smile, and allowing the heart,
Right.
to transform all this information into the much needed power we need to go forward and carry this message. I feel like the Pope now. Father Delaney's back on the podium. Sorry about that, my love. Carry on.
I'm grateful for what you just shared, because what you've just of why you and I collaborate so beautifully together, right? So that extrasensory perception and the emotion that you were just describing, all of my art, I now understand to be activation, triggers. It's what you're describing with the extrasensory. You bring the science to the energy, and you describe why people have with art and things that have been created by another creator, because the energy of the creator and the intentions of the creator is embedded inside art, whether it be music, expressive dance, art, any of it, poetry. It's coded through that creator. You're talking about the science and the background of what that is. When that color is interacting with the observer, it's triggering something in the observer. What is that? This is why the work that you and I are doing together is so powerful when we start aligning with other groups. You mentioned Ashley Lee, the Center for Conscious Kids. I invite our listeners right now to check out that platform, because it's one of the fastest growing resources for families with children that are in these sensitive awarenesses, because it's a whole network of resource. Center for Conscious Kids is out on Facebook, and she's got websites. But this is a collective, as we each ourselves and tap into platform and resources that celebrate one another. It's phenomenal. Going back also, funny statements at the beginning of your awareness of the expansion of the more that is, the consciousness that was coming in from outer, naming names. You were naming names as if they were, beings from certain star systems, and you were calling them by name. You weren't just saying extraterrestrials or where does that come from? I asked. How is it that we now are able to have two dynamically different groups of people? I don't believe there's anything more outside of the beings that are alive on this planet, and people that are calling them by names. Wow. I that too, because through that heart center, we do become more sensitive and have the ears to hear and the eyes to see, you will. And those that need to see in order to believe it will have to wait and have other people show them, right? Because they need proof. And but they're leading the way that I can just believe, or I can stay in the space where I often find myself. I already referenced it. Show me more. Strange, or I can't get my head around. I don't make any commitment in the moment that I'm first being exposed to it for it to have to be truth. A judgment about something that I'm being exposed to for the first time. It's just data. And when you get to a place where you just allow data to be data and to come in and sit in a parking lot, imagine that you can draw upon, and then you ask for more experiences with it, and you get more data. I could state the same names, just some of the that you've described, because I believe that I've had insights from them. Well, that sounds completely insane. I get that. Where did that come from? How that awareness come? I don't know. Once again, I don't need to know. I heard someone that I follow, Lee Carroll, say one time, I use it metaphorically because it's so perfect. I get in my car and I drive to the grocery store. I don't know how the car works, but I know that it's going to get me there, right? So I get some of this data and how it works, but I know that when I apply it, magic. So how it's working is open heart, open heart, open. There's something pretty profound, elementary, fundamental, and fun. Going back to when I was 5 years old, my most treasured gift was Grover from Sesame Street, a program here in America, and Super Grover. And he was my best friend from the time I was 5 to 7 years old. I dragged him everywhere. As I started to realize that utopia was based around me as a 6-year-old little girl learning to spell at the first grade in Spring Garden Elementary School, I wanted to connect with all the things that were the parts of me when I was 6. I said to my mom, I said, Mom, where's Grover? I haven't seen Grover in decades. I have no idea. Did he make the trip to Texas? Because I was originally from Pennsylvania. I said, oh yeah, Texas. Don't know where he is. At the time I was 47 years old. Where has he been for the last 30 something years? Who knows? Well, I set the intention that I wanted him to come back to me, and I didn't care how it happened, because we looked in all boxes in the old house, and my parents are still in the home I grew up in. So that was, but never turned up. And so I really had set that intention back in October, a few years back. And I remember distinctly in January, just desiring him and wanting him to come back so much for only a few short months, with no resistance to how it happened. My daughter walks into the room on a January morning, getting ready for work, and she walks in and says, Mom, do you know where my choir shirt is? I said, I do. I placed it in the basket on the other side of my bed right before bed last night. I had just washed it. She walked over to get it, and she held up a Grover, and she said, Mom, what's this? Is this yours? I dropped the hairdryer. I ran over. I looked at it and I said, where did you get this? And she said, it was right here on top of the laundry basket. I said, that's impossible. No one else was in the house last night. No one came in. I put that basket there before bed. And then I just stopped and I just cried. I was like, I said I didn't care how he came back. And it came back to me, and I can't explain it. Nope. After Grover belief system, like, wow. Like, I don't know how that happened. I don't know how it worked. But it was very intentional that it came that way also, so that I would know exactly that no one had come in that house. It was on top of the laundry basket that I did literally right. And then I'm waking up and Grover is on the laundry basket. Explain that. Explain that in this universe of magic.
I can't, Kate. I have the same problem.
I don't need to know how it works. It does.
I have the same problem with my underpants. And on that
Please
note,
explain. I need more. No. What do you mean?
No. I'm not going to explain that one. It's a man thing. Have you seen me underpants? Anyway, I don't ask the universe.
Oh, the rainbow that you run in.
Yeah.
Oh my. Yes, unfortunately, many of us have seen it because you photographed it in a marathon run. Thank you for all of that.
Well, my view is, this has been marvelous, and thank you for coming on, and thank you for being you. This is just like a normal one of our conversations, and I'd just like to say, Cryon has got a lot to answer for, but we'll keep that between ourselves.
Yeah. No, but it's exciting. Well, the conversation. I want to just mention that I'm stepping outside of my comfort zone to begin a process on Awake TV network that begins this Tuesday night, the 18th, starting at 8 Central Time. I will be weekly for the next 12 weeks exploring the IAM presence and really building up the into this. And it's part of my path and my experience of how I've grown into where I am sitting today. And it's an invitation for everybody in their IAM. You know when you're on the path, please join in and be a part of that energy and that collective to amplify each of our IAMs. And if you're not yet aware of how they are contributing love, I believe we're all here to love, and we do that in our own unique ways. And fundamentals of everything is on purpose, getting into having more fun in your world where you have your heart opening up. That's where start to expand. And so we're going to explore that over the next 12 weeks on awaketvnetwork.live.
I'll be putting that out there, Kate, and
share that because it's right in this vein of conversation.
Yeah, and it's time for us to sort of wrap up now. But thank you very much indeed. I'm sorry that the connection's been dreadful. I'm not quite sure of the reason for that, but not to worry. Our intention was there. Our hearts were fully open, and I'm sure that will do more good than we can possibly realize. So
I totally agree. I love you.
On that note, have you got anything final to say?
That I love you dearly, and I'm so grateful that our paths connected, and I love expanding love with you. And I love the people that are coming into this with us, of all of us. I'm so excited for each of us stepping into our genius. And I celebrate that with each one of us.
Thank you, darling. Thank you for that. And I absolutely adore you too. So hopefully, good luck on Tuesday. I'm sure that you don't need it, but I'll be right behind you. And see you soon. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.